I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
First, let me thank you for taking the time to share with us about selling your business and the preparation and all those kind of things. It really, to me, it's important to me and it's important to the people, my members and the people that are here at this PACES conference. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Uh, Before we get started, let's talk about you because I think it's important for people to kind of get to know you a little bit. So tell us about you.
Okay, let's see where to start. Um, well, I've been in the process serving world for probably 20 something years. I started when I was in my early 20s and um, did a lot of part-time work process serving. My father, Robert Marcus, was in the process serving business in New York, and I kind of learned a little bit about the business from him, and then I moved to Ohio and kind of engaged with some process serving companies that were already in business in Ohio and part-timed for them, and went out on my own in 96. So and worked very hard at process serving for a good 10 years before I sold my business. And that really was my world. That was a big part of who I am, was my job. And I have a little girl. She's 12 years old, and we live on a farm here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we have chickens and a pony and a goat and things like that. So my life now is completely different. I don't work 90 miles an hour as I had done for the last 20 something years, and things have kind of slowed down a little bit. But I still work as a consultant in the process serving industry, assisting companies that are looking to take their business to the next level and helping them out to do that.
Well, it seems like I was pointed in the right direction to the right person. Um, when did you decide, once you started your business and it was kind of like the mom and pop thing, that you wanted to, what made you decide you wanted to take it to the next level, that there is a next level and you wanted to take it there?
The way it happened for me is it wasn't a conscious decision. I was plugging along in business. I was a mom and pop for many years, serving divorce work, subpoena work, and things like that. The volume really changed for me in 2005 with the addition of a new client, and this particular client handled exclusively foreclosure files, and he was one of the largest law firms in the state, and with just serving his firm in just really about 10 counties in Ohio, some of the higher volume counties, that propelled my business into another level, and it afforded me an opportunity to open offices throughout the state. So as my small company grew and I opened offices in Cleveland, Columbus, Toledo, I had my base office in Cincinnati. We had little hub offices all over the state, and then I moved into Indianapolis. So once I had 5 offices like that, it kind of put me on the radar for some of the bigger national companies to take notice, and some of those companies approached me, and I didn't necessarily have a very long run rate with my volume at the level it was before I was acquired. I was really just getting started, so it wasn't a conscious decision to sell. It just kind of happened that way.
Okay. And then in your describe your former business, you know, you had all these offices. I mean, what did you do civil mostly? Did you do mostly for only mostly foreclosure? Did you do debt or did you do court filings? What are the things that you did?
We started out. We became very successful in selling or servicing corporate law firms, firms that were handling large litigation cases, and they needed things done quickly. Like things would go to trial, and they were scrambling around to get 100 subpoenas served on a particular case. We were really known for our quick turnaround and our ability to coverage, to have coverage all over the state as well as nationwide. And then I would say in 2005, we became more in the foreclosure arena with just the sheer volume of papers that were coming through. Ohio was always historically number 10 on the top 10 states for foreclosure filings. And before the volume hit in that arena, most of those types of law firms didn't historically hire private process server to handle that. It was all done by certified mail. Ohio is a mail state, so they would choose that route. But when they started looking at ways to reduce the amount of time that it took to serve the litigation, they looked to process serving companies. So we really, at that time, I would say our business was 80% foreclosure, and the rest civil litigation and divorce cases and things like that.
Okay. You were approached for someone to buy you, correctly? Correct? To buy
That's
you?
correct. A couple of times, yeah.
Okay, and then once you decided, okay, yes, I'm going to do that, what kind of was your mindset, mind frame? Was it stressful to think I'm going to be losing my baby, or they're not going to be able to handle it the way I do? Because I know I would be somewhat stressed that way. So what was your mind frame? What were you thinking?
It was a very hard process for me because at the time, with having 5 offices and, having a number of employees that counted on me, it was the unknown factor is what I struggled with. I didn't really know what it was going to be like once I sold and how things were going to go. But in all fairness, for my particular transaction, I mean, the process, I just worried a lot. I had a really great acquisition attorney that kind of helped me through the process based on his experience with being involved with other companies that sold. It wasn't, he didn't have experience with a process serving company necessarily, but it's the same types of feelings that owners go through with trying to relinquish control. And it is a very difficult thing to do. It's one of those things that you have to be very secure in your person and who you are, and an openness to learn and maybe understand that there are probably better ways sometimes to do things. I mean, I built a beautiful business, but in all fairness, I am probably not the strongest operationally when it comes to managing processes with large volume. I mean, I did great with what I built, but when it was ready for me to take that next level, it was probably good that I had, some people that had that type of experience under their belt. So it's just taking a step back from yourself and understanding that, you're great, but you're probably not great at everything.
That's a scary thought for me because I actually think that I'm great and I don't like giving up control, but I know I'm going to have to one day.
Yeah. It wasn't easy, and the staff that is still working there today will tell you they have some funny stories about it. With how it went for me. It was not an easy process, but it ended up being okay.
Okay, great. Let's talk about the details and about your experience in selling your business. What comes to mind first? And once you've already decided now that I'm going to have to give up control, I'm going to sell my business. What was your experience in beginning that process?
I struggled with. You have to remember, at the time when I was being approached, we were growing our business tremendously fast, and we were taking on new clients and onboarding new clients and dealing with a large volume of process. It doesn't necessarily lend itself to having lots of time to implement the structure needed when people come to you and want to sell, for them to buy your company. For example, there's a lot of due diligence questions that are put forward, and it could be basic things like, do you have job descriptions for all of your staff? Do you have outlines of the process that you go through? Do you have contracts in place with your clients? And all of these things. It was very busy times for us, so we didn't necessarily have a lot of those items in place when they came knocking for sale.
And those things, I'm sorry to talk over you, and those things really kind of add value to your business, right?
Absolutely. yes, the more you have infrastructure and defined processes and things like that, they absolutely add value to it.
Okay. As far as objectives and planning go, you know the importance of understanding your motivation to sell. What were the reasons for a process server might want to sell their business?
Um, Typically, it's somebody that might want to retire. They've been doing it for a number of years, and they're looking to retire and just leave the business altogether. Um, or it could be somebody wants to sell to enhance their company, to take it to the next level. They're looking to merge with the company that perhaps has better technology, or diversification, or they might just want to take on a partner to help share in some of the responsibilities, so all of it doesn't fall to the owner. Um, in my case, I probably was looking at it from a standpoint of taking my business to the next level.
Okay, that's great. That's great. That's great information. Once you understand you want to sell your business and why, what's the next step?
Um, I would say the next step is understanding what makes your business attractive to a buyer. I mean, what's valuable about your particular business, and sometimes it's hard for people to really pinpoint what it is that makes their business worthy for sale, if you will. And there's a number of things that go into that. You can look at your business and say, we have excellent management team. We have employees that have been in the industry long term, that understand and can run this business. And sometimes the value increases, obviously, if that person, if you have a team of people and that person isn't necessarily the owner. Oftentimes process serving companies have a fabulous owner, but the information and the knowledge and the management of the business really stops with the owner. So in that type of situation, it would make it very difficult for the owner to sell and be able to retire. So they're probably going to have to stay with that business and teach people how to run it, and get customers familiar with dealing with somebody outside of the owner. Other things make a business valuable, such as your customer list, your technology that you might have in place. You might have a superior technology-based system as far as your customer management system, or the way you manage the process within your firm. And if you're diversified, if you have a particular area that you're an expert in, let's say your process serving company is exclusively collections, that could be very attractive to another type of process serving company that's wanting to diversify. I see that happening a lot. And then also, obviously, the earning capacity of your particular company, that could be attractive and add value to a sale.
Okay, now you talked about, and you made a statement about the necessity when you were talking about it's not really centered on the individuals, that the owners, because when there's just that, even though that may be a majorative part of a business, what makes the business fly, that's kind of, if it's just about the owners and everybody's attracted to the owners and not to the process and not to the people that are doing the process, that kind of increases the value, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, if I'm a business owner, particularly if it's a small process serving company, and I want to sell, my job, I would say, for the next year to two would be getting my customers familiar with other people inside my office, and even maybe hiring a salesperson to get out there and sell some new clients. Buyers like to see growth, and if you're basically surviving off of the same 20 customers that you've had since 1975, that doesn't add a lot of value to your business if you're the only person that those clients ever see. Because if you want to sell and retire, if I'm a buyer, I'm going to be worried that those folks are, they're not going to use the new owner. They're very attached to the owner as it is. So I would really strive to get, some of the other folks in your office involved with the day-to-day managing of customers, and then some other folks involved with bringing on some new business.
Like kind of like different departments. Because when you're saying that to me, bells are going off in my head. And I'm hearing ding, 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 ding. I get to go on vacation, right?
No, no, you don't. You got to train people. You have to teach people. I mean, I struggled with that in the beginning, especially when I got busy and our volume and, some of the larger law firms, they were used to dealing with me, and we like to think that no one can do things the way we do them. And I still think some of that rings true with some of it, but I got lucky. I hired some really great people, and I instilled in them core customer service values that are still true today. I mean, with the same people are managing my operations from when I sold, and my customers probably never noticed a difference in whether I was there or not. I mean, they missed me, they missed talking to me,
Right.
but I mean, I could still take them out to lunch and we could still have that social thing. But as far as being taken care of as a client, we didn't skip a beat with the sale because I had people in place that did it the way I do it.
That's leadership in motion. That's a trip to you. Did great job, great job. Okay, so now we've decided to sell. We have a buyer in place. What should a person expect? Um,
Expect a lot of sleepless nights. No.
okay.
The buying process is probably one of the most difficult things people will go through in their lifetime. But if you have a good coach in your corner and you have just some organization to it and you approach it and you really need to understand your buyer, the person that's calling, or if you're calling on somebody, you need to understand what their motivation is. So there's really three primary buyer type folks out there. One would be an industry buyer, somebody that's already existing in the process serving world that wants to expand to another state or into another product diversification. So there's the industry buyer. There's also the financial buyer, the private equity company that wants to add perhaps a process serving company to their portfolio of companies that they already own. And then sometimes the buyers are a combination of that. And then in the rare case, it would be probably a new owner, someone that's just learned about process serving and they fell in love with the world and they want to purchase a company and they now want to be in process serving business. So it would be the new owner, the financial buyer, and then the industry buyer.
Okay. And now let's just maybe step back a half step here. How soon would you get your attorney involved in this once you decided to buy? And does that attorney serve as your consultant, or did you have an attorney and a consultant?
I would say as soon as you've made that mental decision to sell your company, before you answer any questions, and before you sign non-disclosures and any of that, I would really get an attorney involved. And in my case, I just found someone that was just wonderful in that served as my coach and, served as, someone that was very diligent about helping me scramble around and get the answers to the due diligence questions that came through, but did it in a very quick manner and which has really enhanced the sale process for me. It was, having someone that, the second that information was being requested, it didn't take us very long to get it together because I had someone in my corner helping me compile the data and preparing the spreadsheets and the cost analysis of, what's the cost of doing business for your particular agency. And I bet you if you asked a number of folks in any type of business, I mean, people are involved and they're busy doing their business, they don't necessarily have that type of analysis readily available.
I agree. Now, we talked about the industry buyer, strategic buyer, new operator, and the financial buyer. Why is it important to know which type of buyer that we're dealing with?
Um, it helps you understand the adding, what you need to present as adding value, what makes your business stand out in the marketplace, and knowing your buyer will help you, through this process. If you don't understand, how an industry buyer, for instance, coming to your company for, to purchase you, they really want to see the longevity that you have in business, and then understanding, why would they be looking at you? So that if they're coming into the state, that you do business in, that makes sense, and that would help you understand, why your business is valuable. Is just understanding your buyer to understand, a financial buyer, they're looking at it from a strictly bottom line aspect, but an industry buyer may overlook some of the blemishes, if you will, that you might possess in your own business, because they really want to move into your state and they already have things lined up to support you in doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because my next question is going to actually kind of solidify your answer. Basically, if we don't know knowing the type of buyer that we're dealing with actually could affect the sales price if we didn't know what type of buyer they were.
Correct. That's the first. Those were the questions I asked. Why do you want to be in Ohio? I can understand why somebody would want to come to the Midwest, and I apologize. I thought I had turned that down before we started.
There's a $50,000 fine for that. And
Hey,
we're not cutting this out of the video. We're not cutting this out of the video. We're going to let them know this was live and not Memorex.
Oh, okay.
Do you need to take?
You have to ask me that question again.
Yeah, I'm supposed to remember the question. Okay, the question was is knowing the type of buyer actually could affect the sales price, because you might be selling too low to one and be trying to sell it too high to another. Correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, great. You're so smart. Okay, in regards to the sales process, what are some of the concerns a person or a process server or a company should have, and how do they prepare themselves in their business?
I think the company really needs to understand the goal of the sales is to increase the value and decrease the risk of for a buyer. So you want to increase the value of your company, but you also want to make sure you're decreasing the risk for the potential buyer. So you need to ask yourself some questions like, what makes your business stand out in the marketplace? What's spectacular about your business? So if you do something far superior to your competitors, I would really enhance that in your presentation and make sure the buyer understands what it is that your business is superior about. You also, like I had mentioned earlier, you want to make sure you're showing good potential growth. In my case, I was involved in, I was already engaged with a number of firms. I hadn't actually closed a deal, but we were in that selling process. So I could show, this is who we've talked to in the state, this is who we've closed deals with, this is where opportunity for growth exists. I already had that information available. So that was a key in my sale, because obviously the new company was interested in growing, not just sustaining at the level that we were at. You also need to understand where your operational strengths are, key management people, longevity of your employees, understanding, that's very valuable when a new owner would be looking at your staff, and if you've been able to maintain longevity, some tenured staff people, that's very strong. And also, do you have repeat customers, and are your customers in a diverse classification of clients, law firms that do a number of types of litigation, and not just one type of litigation. If you are heavily entrenched in one area, it doesn't necessarily decrease your value if you understand who your buyer is. So if, let's say, I'm a collection process serving company and a foreclosure process serving company is looking at me, that increases my value.
Right.
It's not necessarily a bad thing to not be diversified, but you do want to be mindful and understand where your business is coming from, and most business owners know that.
Okay, and now I think this is twice I've heard you use the word contracts. Most of the time, probably. I mean, well, I guess I'll just ask: is it or would it be a requirement to, or better to have all your clients on a contract? But really, that's not realistic, correct?
It's not in our world. I was asked to prepare contracts, and during the acquisition process, I think the buyer would have felt better had I had those contracts in place. But my clients, I've always told them the same thing. I want you to be happy, and that's my contract is, I'm doing a good job, you'll stay loyal. And most process serving companies would probably say the same thing. Their clients are very, very loyal. As long as they're getting great customer service, and you're doing what you say you're going to do, most clients don't particularly need contracts. I would say contracts are not typical in this industry.
I agree. You touched earlier in your own experience in regards to preparing themselves for due diligence, or how can process servers prepare themselves for this due diligence process when a company is actually examining you and saying, yes, we want to buy you, no, we don't want to buy you. How's the best way to prepare for that?
Well, if you're somebody today that would like to sell, but you don't necessarily have a buyer talking to you, I would start immediately by doing some of the things I've already talked about, implementing org charts and job descriptions for your people, documenting what your particular processes are in your company, analyzing your financials, and if you understand, what is it really costing you to do business? When you actually start diving into some of those numbers, you might end up realizing that you've been doing business for years that you're really not making any money on, and you need to probably maybe increase your rates or change a little bit about how you have an account structured. Going through just making sure you have, like for me, I had to go through and make sure all of my process servers were up to date with insurance and IDs and contracts. I did have contracts with process servers in the sense of service level contracts. These are what we expect from you, and customer service contracts with my clients, and things like that. So it's just really preparing your business for somebody to come in and take a look at it, and particularly with your financials. A lot of smaller companies, and I was guilty of this in the early years especially, is you're so busy, you tend to run things out of maybe one account, things like, personal expenses, dry cleaning, whatever, and just making sure that your financials are clean and you don't have any of your personal stuff being ran through your process serving business. And so that way you can prepare, bank statements and financials that don't have to be highlighted with, well, that one's really not part of the business, that kind of thing.
Yes, like Safeway.
Right. Yeah.
So basically, that due diligence really starts with you, because you're going to take a step back and look at your business from kind of like the buyer's eyes.
Correct. Some house cleaning, basically. Yes. You wouldn't want, if you were going to sell your house, you wouldn't have a buyer come in without straightening up, if you will. So you just want to tidy things up.
Okay, great. Another thing you stress is some understanding deal breakers and handling them proactively. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Right. So if you're thinking about selling, and you have this notion of how the sales process would look for you, you want to also think about anything that would be a deal breaker for a potential buyer, and get those things on the table quickly, instead of holding that close to your chest and waiting to see if that's going to be offered or how that's going to be handled. For example, if I have a key person in my business and a manager or a relative that's been working side by side with me, and I really want to make sure that I've secured a role for that person with the sale. I don't necessarily want to sell and then have the new company's folks come in and kind of wipe out the staff that has been loyal to me. Those types of things need to be talked about up front. If you are looking for equity in the new company, definitely talk about that up front, and don't wait to the closing for those types of things. For deal breakers, they should be talked about early on in the due diligence process.
Okay, and I just want to ask you one question, and then I'll ask you if you have anything that you'd like to add, anything that kind of comes to mind that you think would be important and germane to this topic. We're going to go way back to when we first started this conversation, and I asked you about Ma and Pa, and then the transition to deciding to go to the next level and become, build a business. Do you have any regrets?
No, I mean, I hesitate in answering that because I'm currently, you have to understand my current situation to know if I have regrets. It's just, my regret is, it's hard not having your own business. So I'm at the point in my life where I already sold my company. I had a 5-year contract. I stayed on with the new company for 5 years and helped them manage through the volume, and we did some diversifying and things like that. And so when it was over, it was the first time in my life that I actually didn't have a job. And so much of my identity and what I did and who I was tied up into being a business owner. It's taken me, I would say, a good year to adjust. I've been able to adjust. You can do it, but it's still, you know, the first question that people ask you is, what do you do? Or what, you know, so I'm always, I feel kind of odd talking about it in past tense, like, well, this is what I did, and you know, I'm in that transition place where I'm you know, trying to figure out what the next chapter is going to be. So
that's somewhat normal. You understand, even professional athletes, when they retire, kind of go through this and do the same thing. I guess my question more was to the point of, do you regret moving from the Ma and Pa to actually building a business and diversifying and having all these different outlets?
Oh no, absolutely not. I grew the business even before the acquisition. So, and I used to say to my coworkers and my friends that this was the most exciting, challenging time of my life. I mean, I went from, I would say, 9 years of being quite like in a comfort zone of dealing with the managing the volume as it came in and not really challenging myself to step outside of that comfort zone. And when that volume hit the way it did, I was blown way out of my comfort zone, and I had to learn how to work differently, think differently, manage differently, lead differently. Everything changed for me. So it was very, very different. I had to, you know, be not such a control freak and let go and learn to let go and teach people and train, you know, folks to do things that, you know, and it ended up some people did things better than I did, you know, and it just still being okay with that and realizing where my strengths were and things like that. So yeah.
Is there, as we wrap this up, is there anything that you'd like to offer or anything that you'd like to add or comment on that we haven't discussed?
I mean, just this topic in general is probably one of the biggest decisions people would make for their life, and I think just understanding that if you do sell or if you get to that point where you're actually getting ready to take that plunge into someone else owning your business, it's almost like you have to leap and the net will follow, and you're going to be okay, and and it'll happen for you, and it'll be fine, you know.
So when I get ready to do that, you'll hold my hand and tell me it'll be okay. Just
Yes,
let go
I
of
will.
full speed.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have anybody holding my hand, but I will hold your hand.
Okay, great. I want to tell you again, thank you very much. I think you're going to help a lot of people with our conversation here today, because I think in our industry, we come in, we're mom and pop, we get overwhelmed, and we never really think about the next level. We never really think about the future, and that we can sell a business that will return back to us something that would give us some comforts in life, financial comforts in life. So I thank you, and you're a superstar, and I owe you dinner.
Oh, awesome. I'll take it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.